This is part 2, episode 145. Fengxiu suddenly showed a smile, instantly recovering his calm, and declared coldly, "The holy war is over. Agars, go recall all our troops." After all, some human blood was flowing in him. Now that he has already died at my hands for the sake of my race, I want none of our troops to launch any active attacks on humans for 10 days as a tribute for him. His eyes suddenly turned soft. "Child, the instant of your death, you weren't aware of the relationship between you and me. I can only do this much for you. As a human saying stands, even wild beasts look after their young, which is to say that even the worst being in the world won't go kill his own children, his own kin. But I killed you, sacrificing you for the sake of my race's longevity. You, my descendant, my very own descendant. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha." The demon god emperor's hysterical laugh once again shook the star demon pagoda, blowing at once all the seals on it. Barely tough enough, this long-lived building managed to remain without crumbling. All members from Bright Glimmer of Hope couldn't help but fall one after another to the ground. The demon god emperor had really let them go, but at this time, they only had an endless pain and sadness filling them. Kia held Long Houchen's corpse, placing his back on the ground and preventing him from sustaining any shock. Her slim waist suddenly straightened vigorously. Pressing on the energetic ball of light to get up, Sima Xian's eyes were very hard. Swinging his weapon backward, he declared, "I am going to stake my life against them." "Stop it." In a thunderous way, Kia's extremely cold shout stopped Sima Xian stiff. Every member from Bright Glimmer of Hope had their attention pulled, and looked at her all at once. Kia's look was filled with an extreme determination and grim aura spreading all around, and was swept coldly at the group. "Follow me, all of you." An unquestionable might was contained in her voice. At that very moment, everyone in the team felt just as if that overwhelming saint daughter of Samsara of the time of the demon hunt selection was back. Their will could only be affected by Kia's call. 2 traces of tears of blood still remained on Kia's face. Seeing her, none of them would possibly oppose her no matter how sad and in pain they were. Right, even if they were in even more pain than that, how could that compare to Kia? "Follow me, all of you." While making this cold order, Kia rose in the sky, tightly gripping Long Houchen, without even avoiding the demon powerhouses that were surrounding this place for a long time. A pair of grey wings spread out on her back, pushing her body to fly afar. Around the Star Demon Palace, a large quantity of powerhouses from the Devil Dragon Clan, Moon Clan, Star Clan floated in midair, but no one dared move against them. Everyone having heard very clearly the demon god emperor's words, who would dare oppose them? The deep purple-armored Arbao was standing calmly on the walls. Seeing Long Houchen held in Kia's arms, his look was actually totally vacant, only feeling as if he had lost something deep in his heart. He was the most aware of how much effort he had expended on these 2 years, making incessant qualitative leaps in his strength through a very frantic cultivation. But at the moment, he was finding out that his rival wasn't anymore. The Long Houchen held in Kia's arms was visibly lifeless, and the hole in his chest was clearly apparent. He died, actually killed by father's hands. Arbao didn't have the slightest feeling of relaxation, but became instead all the more unwilling. He wanted to defeat him personally, but Long Houchen had died just like that by his own father's hands. He wasn't qualified to call that act into question, but knew that this was the greatest regret of his lifetime. Now that Long Houchen was dead, he would never have the opportunity to prove his superiority in strength to Yu Yi anymore. Everyone from Bright Glimmer of Hope released their spiritual wings and followed Kia, as they sank into the distance. Her previous teardrops kept falling on his face, and violent undulations were caused in the light emanating from their spiritual wings. Gliding through the air, Kia's look was only concentrated on Long Houchen's pale yet bloodless face. He was still as handsome, but just didn't have the slightest trace of life anymore. Her memories had returned, but now he was gone, without even being left the slightest chance to talk with her newborn self. Kia had stopped crying, because she had a final hope deep in her heart, a hope that had appeared the instant she touched Long Houchen's body. If not for this thin hope, she would not have let him go off alone no matter what, and would have followed him at any cost. In hurried flight, They left Modu's area at rapid speed, leaving behind this city that had filled them with extreme sadness and pain. After flying for about half an hour, Kia's wings suddenly vanished, letting her land on the ground below. No one in the team understood her act, but still followed her in landing. Although Long Houchen had died, their demon hunt squad still maintained the same organizational structure thanks to Zhong Fangfang's presence. Long Houchen's last words before his death still kept echoing in them. They couldn't die like that. They had to take revenge for their captain, to return to Modu one day no matter what. This was a forest of low density where Kia kept holding Long Houchen, before cautiously putting him down upon arriving on a flat lawn. Reflexively, everyone in the demon hunt squad surrounded him all around. Chen Yinga immediately bitterly cried out loud, and the rest couldn't stop their tears either. Kia slowly kneeled to the ground, looking at that blue ring on her finger, the forget-me-not ring. He actually handed it back to me. Taking it off lightly, Kia took Long Houchen's left hand and put it back on his finger. Idiot, why are you giving it back to me? It was already yours since long ago, just like my heart. Saying these words, Kia lifted her hand and slowly recovered the pendant Eternal Melody, which was placed back on Long Houchen's neck. That golden skull ejected from his chest suddenly flickered with light. In a deep breath, a determined look flashed through her eyes, as she slowly placed this key of the Tower of Eternity back on her own chest. The instant the Eternal Melody came in contact with her body, it immediately emitted a radiating light. In a swish, that skull got into Kia's lapel and integrated with her body closely, just like the time it had united with Long Houchen. The Tower of Eternity only wanted one successor. Now that Houchen had died in the Demon God Emperor's trapping barrier, it didn't have any more use to make of him, and obviously looked for a new successor. This was already unrelated to the will of the slumbering calamity Elux, as the Tower of Eternity had become even more greedy after obtaining so many souls from this world, gaining a great deal of self-awareness. We are going. Kia's eyes were swept over the surrounding comrades. After speaking these words, an intense brilliance burst forth from her chest, just like the times Long Houchen was teleporting them away. Everyone was engulfed inside, and traveled through space in a flash of light. In another flash of light, they appeared in the Tower of Eternity. The Tower of Eternity's intense aura of death was still present, and just then, everyone in bright glimmer of hope had an incredibly grim look. Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi, who were anxiously waiting for their return until now, made haste upon their return. But their footsteps slowed down very rapidly, and the look on their eyes congealed in a split second, because lying on the ground they saw Long Houchen, with a fatal wound on his chest. There wasn't the slightest trace of life left on his pale handsome face. The captain of the Demon Hunt Squad, bright glimmer of hope, sign of light Long Houchen, had died in battle. How could that be? Yang Wenjiao lost his voice at once. Chen Yinga abruptly rushed to his chest, starting to cry very loudly. Duan Yi didn't ask, but slowly kneeled down, placing his right fist on his chest and performing a knight salute in front of Long Houchen. Demonkind and humankind had been fighting for 6,000 years. Since the fall of the Dark Age, incountable humans had died like Long Houchen in front of his eyes. There was nothing more he needed to know. The result was just in front of his eyes. Long Houchen was dead. Kia kneeled and lightly pressed Long Houchen's chest, murmuring, "Come out, hurry up. Just come out." No one heard her words, but the current Kia's cold eyes were filled with anxiousness. Just as they were all confused, a dark green glow came out, without a sound, from Long Houchen's golden foundation armor. This dark green glow looked very mild as a little mist, that could disappear at any time. A faint voice was heard from this dark green mist: "He is already dead. So my pact with him is gradually dissipating. All I can do is to keep his soul maintained for 7 days. But it also means that you have only the time of 7 days. There is only one chance, and it lies in this Tower of Eternity. You must succeed as this tower's successor, and rely on the profound mysteries of light necromancy to possibly restore his soul and reforge his heart. If he manages to resurrect, my contract in him will reinstate as well, but otherwise, 7 days later his soul will scatter, and be confined in this Tower of Eternity, bound for all eternity. So if you cannot resurrect him within 7 days, Just bring him out from here, at least that way his soul won't have to keep suffering here. As the voice stopped at this point, the green traces disappeared. Right, that was the thin hope of survival that Kia had, which gave her the strength to lead all of Bright Glimmer of Hope to fly away from Modu. The instant she came in contact with Long Houchen's corpse, this voice spread to her mind, telling her that Long Houchen still had a hope for survival. So no matter how sad Kia was, she brought Long Houchen away from there, to put him in safety in the Tower of Eternity, in order to find that hope of resurrection. That voice is, Wang Yuan blankly said. I know. It's that girl from the illusory paradise. No mistake, that's her. Lin Xin bounced wildly. Grabbing Lin Xin's shoulder, Han Yu excitingly shouted, yes, yes. Yi Xiaolei. It's her. She has some kind of contract relationship with Captain, and is the one who came to our aid. So Captain has some hope of revival. There's a hope. The previous grim atmosphere was swept clean that instant, and everyone regained some hope. But even if they were doing their utmost to wipe their tears away, these tears were not wiped clean by any means. Unlike their previous tears, these were tears of excitement. Even if there was only a little hope, they had to grab it at any cost. Kia tightly embraced Long Houchen, and her tears flowed once again. But she didn't keep immersing herself in the sadness, abruptly shouting, does anyone has a rope or a chain? Sima Xian responded, I do. Then he took out a dark golden chain from his storage ring. This chain reached about 5 meters length, just like his gigantic ball of light's chain. It was obviously used as a spare one. Kia took this chain, holding Long Houchen in a standing position, as she looked at the top of the first floor of the tower, speaking in a categorical way, 7 days. We only have a time of 7 days. In this time, we must climb to the top of the Tower of Eternity, and obtain the inheritance of the Holy Necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux. Yes, everyone from Bright Glimmer of Hope agreed boisterously. That spurt of vigor gave the group a sort of torrential feeling. I am going to. The same words came almost simultaneously from both Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. Their wounds were much better, and although fighting would be a bit difficult, how could they cower at such a time? Kia didn't say much more, only telling the nearby Wang Yuan, help me lay Houchen on my back with this chain. With him fighting alongside us, there is nothing that could possibly stop our advance. Yes. Wang Yuan raised no objection, and immediately got to work. The third girl of the group, Chen Yinga, also let go of Yang Wenjiao's embrace, and helped place Long Houchen's body on Kia's back. The tall and robustly built Long Houchen, on Kia's back visibly made a baffling scene. His arms and legs had to be wrapped around Kia's body, and in the end his legs had to be coiled around her waist, to bind him firmly. Feeling Long Houchen's weight, the determination in Kia's eyes grew even further in intensity. In a flash of grey light, the sickle of the god of death appeared in her grasp. Maybe this was due to the recovery of her memories, but the instant it appeared in her hand, the brilliance emitted by this divine tool was completely different from before. Letting out blasts of killing intent, the sickle became even more sparklingly radiating. We are going. Saying that, Kia took large strides toward the second floor of the Tower of Eternity. The members of Bright Glimmer of Hope plus Zhong Fangfang, Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi on the rear formed a total of 9 persons, who stepped up the stairs directly. The trials on the first and second floor were all already completed ahead of time, and they had the 4 Holy Guards' approval. And now, the 4 Holy Guards inside the Eternal Melody on Kia's chest all became her guards. Only, they couldn't give help in their fights inside the Tower of Eternity. After entering the second floor, everyone released their spiritual wings and headed deep ahead. They had never entered the third floor of the Tower of Eternity before, after they came to learn from the divine snail of sun and moon, that Elux had put the human world in a terrible state, and was the main cause of their extremely weakened state that followed. The group never kept going up these stairs. But now was different. Kia was taking the place of Long Houchen to become that successor, and had to succeed at any cost to resurrect Long Houchen. They had not only to continue to go ahead, but moreover reach the 7th floor where they would be able to obtain the inheritance of the slumbering calamity Elux. So, they didn't dare tarry in the slightest. 7 days, that was all the time they had. If Long Houchen wasn't resurrected by then, they would have no more chance ever again. Now was no time to ponder over the difficulties that would be encountered on the next 4 floors. Even if they would face trials on the demon god emperor's level, Kia wouldn't stop their advance. If Long Houchen were to really die, she would definitely follow him in that fate. Very rapidly, they reached the passage from the 2nd to the 3rd floor. Then Kia turned back and looked at her comrades following behind her. Han Yu announced her, "Kia, until Captain resurrects, please be our captain. Issue your orders, and even at the cost of our lives, we will give you our help until the very end." Kia took a deep breath. She didn't voice her thanks, but nodded vigorously, and was the first one to go through the teleporting passage. With a glint, a fantastic teleportation brought the group to the 3rd floor. Right after entering, everyone felt a chill at the same time, as the surrounding atmosphere visibly became sticky. This was a world where they no longer needed to remain afloat, and where they could see just an expanse of darkness. The ground was made of black bricks, and in the sky was a dark purple moon. Upon arriving here, they felt as if they were in another world. And this world seemed endless. As far as the eye can see, there was no end to the scenery, only endless darkness. In the midst of this endless darkness, countless deep purple flames pulsed. These were soul fires, ones characteristic of skeleton soldiers. Right, in this 3rd floor of the Tower of Eternity, what came to their sight were an endless sea of skeletons. And they were accompanied only by an endless expanse of darkness. In that place there only existed a darkness essence accompanied with a dense deathly stillness. But no matter what the enemies were, all members of Bright Glimmer of Hope only had determination in their eyes. They only had one goal, and that was to go through all the obstructions to resurrect Long Houchen. To the other surprise, Kia didn't immediately break through that sea of skeletons, looking cold and calm, instead of getting in a hysterical state of frenzy. She really wanted to recklessly make her way through, but she couldn't. That's because she knew that they only had one chance, and couldn't waste the slightest time. So she couldn't go fight blindly, but had to go through all the trials in the shortest time, which was her current objective. In the 1st and 2nd floor, we were tested by the 4 great holy guards, whose elements were fire, ice, earth and wind, which are the 4 most fundamental elements. From how it looks, we are going to face darkness element in this trial of the 3rd floor. As the holy guards had told us before, they are a total of 12. So the one who will be testing us here is the holy guard of darkness element. The skeletons in the Tower of Eternity are different from the ones from Hao Yue's world. Everyone has already experienced their strength. So many skeletons are enough to stall us until death. There won't be any end if we try to kill them all, and who knows how long it will take. So we mustn't go kill them blindly, but look for that holy guard of darkness and defeat it to pass through this trial. Kia's clear voice reverberated in the 3rd floor. Her speech gradually calmed down the impetuous others, who found out to their surprise that even without Long Houchen's command, Kia, who became their temporary captain, took that duty perfectly, managing to still remain cool-headed. A feeling of confidence arose in every demon hunter from Bright Glimmer of Hope. Right, it was long since the establishment of this demon hunt squad that it revolved around 2 cores. Only, Kia's brilliance was concealed behind Long Houchen so far. The current Kia was not only the one chosen by the god of death, but had all her original memories back. With Long Houchen dead and having only one chance of resurrecting him, Kia didn't have the slightest heart to keep concealing and exercising restraint. She had to lead the group with her all to win over this last chance. Han Yu, Kia called out. Yes. Han Yu stepped forward. Kia ordered, in a bit, we will be launching all-out attacks. When the battle starts, that holy guard of darkness concealed in the midst of the skeletons surely won't stay undisturbed. Use the best of your demonic Eye Commander to find him and lock him down. Yes. Han Yu immediately responded while he summoned the demonic Eye Commander. Zhong Fangfang, forward. Yang Wenjiao, Duan Yi, and Han Yu, behind. The rest goes as usual. Yinga, don't expend your spiritual energy on other summons than McDull. Go. With her last call, Kia waved the sickle of the god of death in her hand. Zhong Fangfang stood behind his heavy shield, while moving over toward that sea of skeletons. The skeletons were all black, just like this world. The only light produced in this world was that which came out from the soul fire burning in their eyes. When Kia's group moved, the tide of skeletons also moved, flocking endlessly, and holding high various weapons to attack them. Extending the spiritual wings on her back, Kia didn't remain with the team. She originally should be a wandering unit as an assassin. In a flash, she outpaced Zhong Fangfang, and pierced through the front line, like a sharp dagger thrusting fiercely in the midst of the sea of skeletons. As early as 2 years ago, they had already passed the trials on the first 2 floors, and could enter the third one, but didn't do so at all. Now that they had finally entered, the trial in this third floor should not be too difficult to them. But upon really charging into the sea of skeletons, Kia immediately felt a massive pressure. The trial of this third floor was above the second floor in difficulty by far. This was not just a mere stepping point, but an even larger test, not a 1 versus 1, but a team battle. In a flicker of grey radiance, a large area of skeletons were reduced to fragments, as the sickle of the god of death was swept around. In just one strike, Kia extinguished the soul fire of over 20 skeletons, but she could sense that these skeletons actually had the strength of human powerhouses of the 6th step. They didn't have as good battle techniques as the Holy Guards, but their numbers were simply endless. But right at this time, their strength as a team became visible. 4 halos of light spread out almost simultaneously, covering an enormous area. These 4 golden halos were naturally released by the 4 temple knights in their ranks. Long Houchen was not present, but their team was still formed mostly with knights. And they were all the top of the younger generation of knights, temple knights of the 7th step. 4 halos release the same ability, the Guardian Knight's halo of holy protection. Able to raise the efficiency of any attacks on enemies of darkness attributes, it also weakened the elemental attribute and speed of the targets in question. Because of being used simultaneously by 4 temple knights, this halo managed to cover an area of several hundred square meters. The incoming sea of skeleton was greatly slowed down, immediately overpowered by Caia, who stood on the front line. This time, Kia's terrifying offensive strength was fully displayed. Having recovered her memories, she also recovered the whole formation she had as an assassin since her childhood. The sickle of the god of death in her hand descended like a real incarnation of death. Grey glints filled with terrifying destructive power came down on the battlefield, breaking a large area of skeletons in pieces everywhere it passed. Under her lead, all bright glimmer of light went through the sea of skeletons at a frightening speed. The demonic Eye Commander was now floating above Han Yu's head, releasing incorporeal waves of mental force through the skeletons' ranks, looking for the main culprit behind their creation. Wang Yuan and Sima Xian defended the sidelines. With Long Houchen's death, their hearts had been repressing extreme sorrow and anger, which was all vented out on this sea of skeletons. Their golden and silvery figures alone took out all the enemies on the sidelines, turning into fine powders all the black skeletons on whom their attacks landed. Lin Xin did not stay idle either. The fire cloud staff launched a meteor shower like a magic cannon, indiscriminately bombing the incoming skeletons. As they attacked these skeletons, everyone gradually gained some benefits. The same situation as in the first floor of the Tower of Eternity took place. In the first floor, they didn't encounter too many skeletons, but every one of them supplied with a boost of 10 spiritual energy, causing the first burst of growth in the Demon Hunt Squad, surpassing their boundaries to make them the number 1 Demon Hunt Squad of the younger generation. For now, these skeletons didn't likewise supply 10 spiritual energy for each of them, but every one killed boosted their spiritual energy by 1 unit. Don't look down on this single unit. A single 1 or 2 killed made nothing obvious, but all the hundreds of them that were killed provided hundreds of spiritual energy. If Long Houchen hadn't just gotten killed by the Demon God Emperor, they would surely all be cheering for this formidable discovery. There would be no need to actually look for the Guard of Darkness. They would only need to keep making a killing to greatly increase their spiritual energy. But this was impossible to them now. They had to break through this stage the fastest possible to resurrect their captain in time. Suddenly Kia, who was the deepest in the front lines just ahead, made a sudden turn in mid-air, and returned to the midst of her comrades' formation. Halt! In a low shout, she stuck a sickle of the god of death to the ground. An incarnation of death slowly took shape behind her, becoming distinct rapidly. Crossing both its hands, a mystical symbol took shape in the hands of that incarnation of death. The symbols were all white and rapidly formed a spherical ring of light, constituted with countless microscopic particles. Kia stepped back, while Zhong Fangfang immediately stepped up imposingly, rushing toward the large tide of black skeleton soldiers. His left feet tread on the ground, and as he kept hold of his shield, the heavy sword in his right hand was held upwards. Zhong Fangfang abruptly shouted loudly, and countless golden glints burst out from his sword, rendering an enormous surrounding area gold-colored. Light of trial. Of course, these skeletons of the sixth step didn't all immediately die under the illumination of light of trial, but their soulfire pulsed violently, as they drew back in panic. Some closer ones were smashed to pieces at once, and the surrounding breath of darkness depleted to a large degree. This instant, Kia's spell was completed. Get purified. These words came out coldly from her mouth, as the incarnation of death condensed in the air spread abruptly. With an extending white halo, those black skeletons all turned white, rendered motionless. The sudden appearance of a large area of white skeletons in this world of darkness gave off a feeling of extreme strangeness. Immediately, these white skeletons turned into white vapor, rising into the air toward the incarnation of death. Their souls were absorbed in the midst of that expanse of white, making the grey incarnation of death only more substantial. A magnificent grey armor covered his whole body. Seemingly every piece of the armor was formed with sharp blades glittering sparklingly. The only area unclear to view was its face, looking as hazy as the night, abstruse beyond compare. Kia soared once again in a movement, appearing in front of Zhong Fangfang. Waving the sickle of the god of death, she returned to lead her comrades to keep fighting. In the mere previous instant, she had purified over 1,000 black skeletons, raising her spiritual energy by over 1,000 units as well. This moment, the distant black skeletons came to a sudden stop, getting out the way and forming a passage. This instant, the black skeletons all quieted down and immediately, tinkling sounds of a horse's hooves rose. These clatters became more and more distinctly heard. A stalwart figure came to the group's view. This stalwart figure was entirely clad in black armor, mounted on a huge horse armored as well. The two of them dispersed a dark purple halation, and upon his appearance, the dark essence in the air immediately rose sharply. In an area extending to 100 meters around him, dark purple blossoms of light were seen rising up. Coming out on his own. This black knight coming to view should be the one testing them. The trials in the Tower of Eternity were hard, but certainly not impossible to pass. If the black skeletons in here were really inexhaustible, even a powerhouse of the level of the demon god emperor would sooner or later be stalled to death. So these inexhaustible skeletons were only a kind of preemptive test toward them. Because a certain amount of black skeletons were killed, this black knight, which was very possibly the 8th Holy Guard, appeared as a matter of fact in front of them. "Come have a go with me," Kia shouted and immediately rushed forward. The sickle of the god of death was placed on her side, its sharp end leaving a deep mark on the ground. A fierce murderous spirit burst out instantly from her body, and that instant, Kia's whole body was covered in a sparklingly translucent grey drizzle. She very rapidly approached the center of that sea of skeletons, and the time she tried to breach through that passage, the black skeletons on both sides threw themselves at her, attempting to stop her advance. Kia had a cold demeanor but a fiery temper, burning like an inexhaustible flame. In that very moment, all kinds of memories from her time with Long Houchen resurged. No matter how powerful the enemy was, she would only keep advancing. Nothing else than death could stop her advance anymore. That incarnation of death, that had just absorbed a large amount of souls, followed Kia forward, just like her shadow. But it didn't use any apparent abilities, only releasing the same grey color as Kia from its body, an extremely auspicious grey. Zhong Fangfang and the rest of Bright Glimmer of Hope followed behind Kia, at a rapid speed. In the meantime, as Kia faced off the encirclement of the black skeletons on the sidelines, they also breached through this sea of skeletons. How could these black skeletons of the sixth step simply block their advance? Just like before, they kept advancing and were rapidly catching up with Kia. Every wave of the sickle of the god of death in Kia's hands was certain to take the lives of many skeletons. After getting killed by her weapon, these black skeletons all turned into grey streams of air, pouring themselves into the shadow of death in the air. Part 2 end here.